So I'm just gonna show you here how to fit it. What's up, YouTube? This is your boy G, back in another video. Alright, today I just want to open and show you how to replace the spring, the silver spring on this R2 trigger, specifically L2 R2 trigger for DualSense, alright, for PlayStation 5. So if you notice, a lot of other people, or a lot of people including me, are actually experiencing some issues with their R2 and DualSense after a while. Being loose or something. It's actually because of this spring. Right now, this is what I found out inside. If you notice, this is snapped in half. All right, so you would notice a tiny little bit of a breakage there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of like snapped in the middle. Actually, it's not a little bit. The other half is missing. All right, now this spring came from inside the controller, and it's obviously broken in the middle. So we're gonna open up this controller right now, the DualSense, and I'm going to show you where did I get that specifically, and we'll replace it. All right, so I can show you how to replace it with some other springs right now. All right, so here and here are the initial points, where you open it, and then the first thing that you're gonna do is to open those black, and then the R2 triggers, or the R1, L1. So let's go ahead and get my tool here and open this up. So I have my handy dandy precision tool here that is just freshly ordered out of Lazada as well. It's very cheap. I just ordered it, somewhere there, a couple of hundreds. So we're gonna use this one. I don't know exactly the exact size of it, but you're just gonna gauge it if you may. On a DS4 screw, they just have the bolt size for the screw. Also, of course, we're gonna need some pry tool. If you do have some plastic pry tool, that you can use, I highly suggest doing that. I don't, so I'm gonna use this a little flat head here. I'm just gonna be very careful, but again, if you do have a plastic pry tool, please use that not to scratch the body of your DualSense controller, right? Because it might break it, might make it ugly. So I'm just gonna use it really carefully here, just a little bit of force, not to dent the actual plastic material of it. So if you notice, just a little bit of force, I already managed to open this side of controller, right? And it's gonna bring it up. So let's do it here as well. All right. So very little effort there, guys. All right. So we just need to kind of like unclip it, right? It's clipped inside from the bottom. All right. Same here on the bottom, right on the charging port themselves. So just unclip them, and then it's gonna open up that little black face plate. So just pull it out. We're gonna pull it out like this. Just be careful again on those little parts. If you notice here, that is really tiny, so don't pull it like, don't do some Austin Evans there, and make sure you keep your controller parts secure and not broken. Right now, you will see here there's a little bit of controller, a little gap there where you can see the Philip screw, right? That's the one that we're gonna open. So let's open it up. So again, this is where we use the precision screwdriver that we've got. The size of the controller, or rather the screw, is exactly the same with the DS4. So that's where I based the size of the screwdriver that I'm gonna use. All right, now that we have those open, all right, you would notice there's other clips here. Two clips specifically right on the left and right side of the charging port, the bottom charging port. So we're just gonna pry that a little bit. Be very careful in this, not to like put excessive force, because of course it's gonna snap those hard, right? It's gonna break that. So just a little bit of force there. You really have to be careful. And open this up. Let's go ahead and open this. Of course, you have to be careful as well. All right. Again, like what I said earlier, do not pull any Austin Evans skit here, breaking the controller app. I mean, This is about 3,999 pesos controller, right? Opening it up is a little bit easy. I mean, it's easier, but you have to be very careful of it, right? So do not put or use excessive force every time. So just a little bit of squeezing here and making sure that there's gap. Now you'll notice the top part won't really budge, right? They won't move, they won't separate each other. That is because there's some screw holding them from this part. So we're just gonna pry this R1 button. This is just not on the top, right? Or like inserted hard in the top. So we're just gonna pry them up. And same with the L2 button. Let's use this flathead screw here. So again, be very careful not to scratch or dent your plastic there. All right, so we got them open up. Now you would notice that there is a screw right here, right? So one on the left side, one on the right side, or one for each button. So we're just gonna open that up. This is basically the one that is holding the topmost part of the controller together. So make sure not to pull it out right away with force without removing the L1 and R1 and removing the screws yet, all right? So just be careful about that. All right, now that these screws are removed, it's now gonna come up easily, right? So we just have to open it again gently here. All right, and once you've pulled it out or pull each other together, it should open up like this. All right, so let's put that aside. And this is what inside of a DualSense controller looks like. Right, the battery is a little bit bigger. So yeah, battery is bigger than the DS4, and this is how it looks like inside. Now on the left side, you would see that there's a spring, all right, on that part, and that is for our L2, by the way, as you can see. And that's the one that pushing it back. Now on the R2, you would notice that there's no spring anymore, right? And that is because that spring just broke in half. That's the one that we're seeing earlier. And that's what's happening, right? Whenever you feel that the R2 button just suddenly lose or suddenly lost its resistance, right? This is how it looks like. The spring that is attached to it is this, right? So it's snapped in half. Right? It's missing the other part, as you can clearly see there. I don't know, and the focus can do that, but you can clearly see on the middle, the broken part of it. It's like as if it was cut by something. So that's what happened. It broke itself in half because of excessive use of Days Gone. You know, excessive gaming with Days Gone. By the way, I love that game. That's my favorite game. So I've been playing that all day, all night, every day, every week since I got the PS5. So it kind of like break it because I always like use my motorcycle and pressing that button. Now you'll see here, it's still basically going back or has a little bit of resistance because it's relying on the button itself, right? So right underneath or right above, right, the circuit board there where we activate the L2 essentially, you will see that there's a rubber thingy, the button. So that's the only one that is returning the R2 button. Now there's no spring. That's why it's a little bit loose and it's not as good as it was before when it has a spring on it, right? So the spring is not that really important or big, I don't know, like what you call this, like a super critical component, you know, I can say, because it will still work, right? It didn't break any electronic part of it, but the resistance just got a lot weaker, right? And of course, it's not great on feedback as opposed to push it back further. So now I got a new spring here. This is for a DS4 version 2, right? So this is for PlayStation 4 controller. I got a bunch of this, just ordered it from Lazada, from some online shopping, you know, center here. About 70 pesos. This is extremely cheap. Probably about, $2, less than $2, right? Probably $1.50. So this is really cheap and it contains a lot of springs already. So you can always replace if it probably got broken again. But you will actually notice here on this spring, it's just a little bit different from the dual sense, right? Now you notice there the spring, it's kind of slightly bent inwards, right? Probably less than 180 degrees. So it's not as straight, it's a little bit bent, designed already, bent inwards to allow more elasticity on it without putting so much pressure, all right, on that very end, that kind of arm that just broke on our dual sense, right? On this DS4 spring, the pressure is actually on the coil itself of the spring rather than that end, inner end of the arm. And that's where I think what's breaking the dual sense spring, right? Because the dual sense spring is made more to be more rigid, more stiff, more hard, but that costs the elasticity, right, to be compromised because you have to bend it so much. It has to bend a lot of angles compared to the dual, to the DS4. So as you see right now, I just replace, or I just, put the DS4 spring on the place of the DualSense, right? So let me see. Let's go ahead and I just noticed right now that the Dual Sense and Dual Shock is both DS, so I cannot use the DS anymore. I had to specify Dual Sense and Dual Shock for, right. So I'm just gonna show you here how to fit it. Of course, it's gonna be loose. So just hold it like this, and then grab the other arm. Very ever slightly here. Nudge it there on the lock. All right, push it a little bit in place to make sure that it's not wobbly or anything. So now it's in place. You will see it's kind of like acting as 90 degree angle right now. And that's what it's supposed to be when not pressed, right? So the other side is housed on the button itself, and the other one is housed down there next, like closer to the circuit board. So that's good, right? That's it. It's now pushing back. Now, I would be honest though, it's not as stiff, right, as the default DS4, or sorry, the default DualSense feel. All right, um, it's not that wobbly. It's good. It's as if it's brand new already, but the feeling is like it's the DS or the Dual Shock triggers rather than the exact Dual Sense. But it's almost the same, right? If you give it to your like girlfriend or other people, they won't really realize, they won't really feel what's the difference of it, and that is actually for the better, right? Because again, it's not as stiff as before, making it break. It's more elastic right now, more resilient to the bending. All right, so we're gonna put it back here. As you can see, it's just the same as we put before. So you remember there are screws on the top. So let's go ahead and put them back here. All right, it's tightening it up. This is on the L1 part. Let's get the R1 part. All right, just make sure it's tight enough, not to lose thread or anything. But that's it. So the next is we're just gonna put the button back, right? Like what we did again earlier. This button are awesome, right? You can actually remove or put them back without opening up the actual controller. You see that? I just actually press them, right? Let's do that on the L1 as well. That's it, right? So it's now awesome. It's holding its place, not gonna fall or anything. So the feeling is good. L2 button, R1 button, R2 trigger, and R L2 trigger are all working perfect now. So we're gonna put the last remaining two screws here. All right, last screw for the bunch. All right, just making sure it's all perfect here. So lastly, we have to put this black material back, the faceplate. All right, just snap them back like that. And as you can see, that's it. It's back. All right, so I hope this helps. That is how we change the DualSense L2 R2 trigger. Specifically on this one, it's the R2 trigger from my own DualSense. Again, as I've broken the spring in half just because I love Days Gone so much. So I've been playing Days Gone. So just be aware of it because, the R2 is a really essential part of the controller. On the Days Gone, it's for guns, for motorcycle acceleration. It's for a melee. I think it's the melee that actually broke it because whenever I use melee, I press the R2 trigger again and again and again, and that kind of like broke it. But that's all for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Click the like button if you like this video. Thumbs up if you like this. But thanks so much for watching. Stay safe and see you on my next one. Peace.